But I just came to confess that I'm just feeling so blessed. I'm just feeling so blessed. I'm just feeling so blessed. Wake up every day, big smile on my face. I just came to confess that I'm just feeling so blessed.
Popping it in, I'm going all in. Talking about me when she with her friends. Said when she with me, she loving that shit. When she with me, can't get enough of it. Popping it in, I'm going all in. Talking about me when she with her friends. Said when she with me, she loving that.
So that's just all about communication. Like if you just open your mouth and go and see, you'll be surprised what things could come into fruition just off of you showing your personality. Yeah, I feel like I'm giving gems off the
I'm gonna stop
Off
talking.
the intro.
Yeah.
Damn, John, how long you gonna take on the intro, man? Damn.
I don't know. It's crazy. Let me stop until we get ready.
So we are joined by probably one of the most poetic people in the area, Brother John. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going? I don't know if I'm the most poetic, but I'm getting there.
Well, you'll definitely get there, especially since I have a bit of poetic charm myself. So I feel like, definitely you'll get there for sure.
Most definitely.
But I feel like it's kind of like Bruce Leroy. You're kind of already there.
Yeah.
You just got to realize you're the master.
Hey, that's what I'm going for.
So, because John and I are writers, we thought it would be a fantastic idea to talk about how when you're an artist, when you're a performer, someone who gets notarized and paid for the talent that you have, especially when you're a guy and, you like girls, and even if you don't, but we're going to talk about it between men and women who were born that way and identify with being that, just so, everyone's being represented, but not necessarily. So we want to talk about how girls seem to be very intrigued by men who have an artistic spirit.
That's something that I feel like in time that I noticed just from my experiences of just traveling and going on dates, going out to different clubs and venues, that I feel like when you tend to be more proactive or open in an environment and you're really showcasing your personality, you tend to draw more of a crowd in a sense where, it's like in a sense like you go out, let's say you go to a club and you see people standing and they're standing in a corner and no one goes over in that corner in that sense. But you see somebody who's reckless, who's acting out, who's talking, who's active, and like really getting somebody showing like, hey, it's me. And people are intrigued by that because people want that energy to try to pull that side out of them, because I feel like people have many sides that they showcase. And I feel like if you never had anyone to really bring that energy out of you, when you have that particular friend or person or stranger come out and really showcase like, oh, what's up, blah, 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 and let's really go out and show it, kind of like, oh, I want that person around me.
Right.
And then you find those opportunities, regardless if it's going out or if it's work or it's a promotion. It's like people are going to remember that side of you or that image, that vibe that you were able to present,
1,000%. I feel like artistry is all about being authentic. And I might be, in the minority here, but I feel like a lot of people will be able to agree, especially someone yourself who is also an artist. I feel like illustrating your artistic spirit is probably one of the most attractive things you can do as a human being.
I definitely agree. Like I write poetry from time to time, and I write notes, and I found that I was really good at putting words together. And I think I discovered that when I was in elementary school. And there was we had a writing contest, and basically we had to write about the different stages of fall, spring, summer, and winter, which was kind of corny, but if you won, your poem got published.
Oh, okay.
And I got selected.
Hey.
But at the time, that wasn't cool, being in the neighborhood, and it's like you're considered weak or feminine. So I never really like grasped on that idea. Though it was a highlight, I agree, it was definitely a highlight. I didn't really get into it until like after high school, where I started writing, and I started getting more attention from women.
Yeah.
And I started noticing when I would write these poems, and I would like write them on my Facebook, and I would do notes. I don't know if you remember that. I'm not sure how many people are on Facebook anymore, but I would write notes, and I started like getting messages from people like, oh, I really like what you wrote. I identified with that. And then I would get and engage a crowd, a small crowd, nothing big, but I felt like people would really get on my case. I'm like, oh, why don't you do this, do that? And I never really felt like I had the courage to do it, but I always felt like I had the power to do it in a sense. And I think what got me to really want to do it more was just that one person, or that group of 5 or the 10 people who would come up to me or write to me and say like, I really appreciate the words that you write, as opposed to, I had haters that were like, oh, why are you writing about this and that?
Oh, they was mad about the attention.
Yeah, and they would make fun of me, and like, but then I would other people who would make fun of me come on the side and like, listen, like, I really like the way you write. I like what you're doing. Keep doing your thing, and those little words of encouragement, consistently kind of push you in a way to keep going.
1,000%. And the amazing part about that story is that that's the story in progress of growth. So usually artists have these type of stories of triumph. It's almost like a hero's journey. To think about Joseph Campbell, where you go through these trials and tribulations where you're not sure of yourself, but you just have to take action and do it anyway. And then you get that reinforcement like, oh, perhaps I should be doing this. And then you keep doing more and building and building and building. And I feel like those type of things are simply magnetic. So you said, you talked about vulnerability, which I think is on point, because I feel art is about being authentic and vulnerable, especially if you think about society as a whole. They view, like you said, vulnerability as a weakness, but then they praise you when they, love the experience that you gave them. So I've always looked at the world as it's a fun place if you know where to look.
Of course, I definitely agree. And as I brought up earlier, I think one thing that even if you are quote unquote not attractive to the masses, because at the end of the day, when it comes to the way you look, it's all an opinion. Like, you may look like a snack to some, and then you may look like an expired meal to others.
Exactly.
But it's really about how you present yourself. And I feel like one key example that I pulled from Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction.
Wonderful book, masterful.
It's an amazing book. And I feel like with Marilyn Monroe, she's considered an icon, beautiful, sexy.
I thought it was the siren.
Hmm?
I thought she was the siren.
She was.
All right.
But in regards to what she put out in energy, I just was so amazed, because I always thought, I never really read anything about her just other than what she did with John F. Kennedy,
Right.
and that she was like a sex symbol, right? But when I saw her backstory, and like, she was in an orphanage, she was made fun of, she was not attractive, and it wasn't until she discovered by mistake where she barely had any clothing. She had to borrow someone else's shirt, and it was smaller, but she was developing. And when she went to school, she had almost every boy in that school want to get her attention. And then she realized, like, listen, if I do this, I get attention. And basically it started, she took steps of getting makeup, wearing tighter clothing, changing her voice, understanding like the art of how you speak, how seductive that is in that sense.
A higher pitch, let's say.
Yeah. And I feel once she started doing those things, she was able to get different positions in life. Like when she wanted to be an actress, she was able to meet the producers and casting directors and putting on a show and really getting that attention. Or she wanted to be in office, she would meet the key people to get her into that particular position. And I feel like once you really figure out who you are and go consistently in a, I guess in a way I would say like tunnel vision in a sense.
Yeah.
And just continue to go and not pay attention to what someone else is doing, because I feel like there's a lot of people who do the same as opposed to just being yourself. Like the bottom is crowded. There's not too many people at the top. And I feel like in order for you to really grasp that idea, you really have to figure out who you are and not pay attention to where I want to be this particular celebrity. Like, oh, I want to be this because they look like this and they have this money. But you want to, I feel like you really need to figure out what you want to be, what you truly want to be. And once you figure that, you're going to flourish to an extent to where people would automatically would want to gravitate you, because being like this particular person gets boring, you know?
That's so true, John. And I feel like if we even see how it relates to dating, especially when, let's say you're in a relationship with someone and you have that tunnel vision, and yet they feel neglected in terms of attention, naturally so, but at the same time you're in the zone. And let's be honest, that's one of the main reasons why you were attracted to me, because let's be honest, most other guys are flooding her with attention, and attention she doesn't even want.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that you have that tunnel vision and that you're focused and doing something with your life as opposed to waiting for them to contact you. And that's why she has that magnetic pull towards you. So it's one of those things where, especially with Marilyn Monroe, I feel like she grew, as you were saying, her art of seduction, especially when she was modeling in her modeling phase. And that's how Hugh Hefner actually got her Playboy photo, because he actually went to a former photographer who was actually filming Marilyn and just had it for sale. So that's actually how her myth or legend exploded even more so when she, you saw
Right.
the instant success of Playboy. So it's one of those things is when, like how you were saying, when you be more of yourself, you just get more of that momentum. And that definitely happened to Marilyn after she understood what actually made her attractive. And I feel like most artists usually know what makes them attractive.
Of course, most definitely. And I feel like, just be yourself. Be carefree. Life is full of stresses. Don't worry about, I'm not saying go crazy and be completely reckless, but I feel like don't get so caught up in the idea of risk and making mistakes and how people view you and how you look. I feel like the person that automatically stands out in the room is that person that is willing and able to just be who they want to be. And I feel like once you do that, you become that celebrity. You become that rapper. You become that model. You become that singer. You become that actress. It's just something that you just have to want and believe and just not care. Just be you. And I think once you start realizing that, so many great things will just fall in your corner.
It's so true. It's when you're being you, I feel like the universe just rewards you for making that decision. Like they just align things up. So, I feel like it's certainly blessings, especially from, the divine creator. I feel like when they say made in his image, to me, it feels like you can even view us as a speckle in his imagination. Like that's how powerful that is. But we also have the ability to imagine. So I don't know how you feel about the whole humanist theory.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of merging human beings with like cyborgs, just to extend life. So I'm not really into that at all. I'd rather be, a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But with the transhumanist theory, they're trying to synthesize the imagination, but they can't, because our imagination is always as big as we need it to be. It's not bound by space or time, and the only things that can really navigate that would be just authenticity and love in your spirit.
Right.
Positivity.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like, I'm the type of person who definitely likes, positive and powerful wordings, and I do listen to like motivational speakings and stuff like that. And there's a motivational speaker by the gentleman of Les Brown, and I feel like he's such a pivotal force in the speaking community and being a minority at that. And just going on to what you said about imagination, he gives a speech where he basically says, like, we on this planet, in regards to being alive and speaking creatures and being able to exude that particular energy, we are the only creatures on Earth, human beings, that have that ability to imagine. A dog can't imagine. A cat doesn't have that idea of imagination. The fish, they don't have that. We do. And I feel like a lot of people who grow up in this society kind of grow into this phase or idea where they get stuck, where they're constantly running into a brick wall because you are positioned to not engage in what you imagine.
Right.
Because when you're in school and they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then you say it, and then somebody's next to you and is like, oh, you can't do that.
Exactly.
Or your finances might not be in order. I'm like, oh, you don't have enough money for that. Or your looks, or you don't look good enough for that. And then you get into this mood where you're like, you know what, maybe they're right. I should follow the status quo, and I should do this. And then as years and years go on, you tend to forget your impressionability of what it was to be a kid, and what you thought or believed or had an idea of what you could possibly do, and it takes away from what you actually wanted. And I feel like, you know, there's creators like Steve Jobs or even Kanye West, they get a lot of flack off of their free speaking.
Right.
And I agree, you know, they can be a bit much, but I feel like it's good to want to speak out and really want to showcase what you have to offer, because it gets you to think. Like, everything that you may say that may come out of your mouth may not be right, but that's not the point. The point is to really exude what you have to say and get it out of you. And maybe that one person that heard what you say or what you spoke or that rant you gave off may inspire somebody to do something else, or may push you to think in a different direction. And I feel like when you do that, you get more of a sense of energy of like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Or why am I affecting this person so much? And I feel like it engaged that conversation to really want and be able to do whatever you put your mind to. But you got to really get back to the basics of just really going into that imaginary world of yours and really thinking like, oh, this is going to be me. I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but if I continue to think about it, and if I continue to go against the people that are looking down towards me and just really think highly of myself, then it may take a while, but as long as you keep pushing, as long as you're able to breathe, as long as you're able to fall up and get back up and see that, like, I can continue to do this, it's something that I really believe that works, because there's so many examples in this world of people who had the world against them, and they kept pushing, they kept trying, they kept really revisiting that idea that was, you know, considered stupid.
Shorty got me brainless. AI, 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 and I don't understand it. AI, I don't know. Yeah.
And then I made that connecting point where I was just like, hey, people already eavesdrop. If you're out here having dope ass conversations while you're lit, it's like, why not? Why not put it into a podcast? He makes podcasts. He's here outside of the city. Pick his brain. I'ma just be here.